Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Hello, Michael Paszt. Tell me why both wrestling fans and moviegoers will enjoy Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro.
Hey, how you doing? I think that it's a two-part thing. First of all, if you're a wrestling fan, you know, it's a great story. But I think also for a non-fan, just the story of a guy who's from Thunder Bay, who ended up working his way into LA and then eventually to Mexico and then becoming this icon. It was just really something kind of really fascinating. And at the end of the day, he's also a single father trying to raise his daughter.
So you got that human component.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So are you a longtime wrestling fan?
Oh yeah. I mean, I can remember my dad taking me to Maple Leaf Gardens back when I was like 4 years old. And then there was this show, I remember, the Bear, Dave McKigney, I think his name was. It was the Bear Man. He used to do this kind of this touring around, Ontario, and he used to have a bear in the ring and wrestling, people and all that sort of stuff. So as a kid, I was like, oh my God, it's awesome. So yeah, I grew up loving wrestling.
What do you think the appeal of wrestling is?
I think there's just something kind of, it's like going to a rock concert, right? It's that adrenaline. You shout, you participate, and then at the end of it, you're like, you're spent. And you're like, oh my God, that was awesome. So I think it's like going to a concert, or when you're there, you're just kind of really kind of on a very basic level, the good versus evil aspect of it all, and just you're shouting for your hero, and then you leave the arena kind of very happy and good.
Cool. So tell me about the differences between Mexican wrestling and American wrestling, because we see that in the documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, there's not in terms of story wise, it's I guess it's all very, very similar. But in Mexico, it's there's very good versus evil. It's very kind of defined in that sense. I guess in the States, it became a lot more the shades of gray of characters like Stone Cold Steve Austin, not totally good, not totally bad. In Mexico, you've got your technicals and you've got your rudos, which is the good and the bad side and all that. But in Mexico, the biggest difference is I guess for me is cultural. It's so ingrained as part of the culture. It's kind of like us in Canada, when we're born, we're given a hockey stick and we put skates on, right? In Mexico, when they're born, they're given masks, wrestling masks. It's just part of their part of their culture. And I think that's the big thing, the big difference.
How is Vampiro holding up these days?
He's doing very good. He's doing great. I think when I first reconnected with him, he was over 300 pounds, I think, and he was really kind of having a difficult time balancing his work schedule. When we commute and ourselves, I complain if I have to hop on the subway and commute downtown and all this. And this guy was like, he's living in Thunder Bay, and he flies to Mexico City and Los Angeles every single week. That's his commute, and then he had to be back on Sunday night so that he could take his daughter to school on Monday morning. And I was like, dude, you're doing that every single week? And he's like, yeah. And I was like just blown away by that. And at the same time, he was just kind of his body was breaking down. He just I guess mental health was affecting him, and it was just when we kind of connected and we talked, and it was sort of like this was a really important story to tell, and in some ways I kind of helped him, I guess, kind of climb out of that hole.
Well, that's nice of you.
And I guess, I mean, that's the that's the positive for all of that. Like we were falling around and it's tough because you don't want to interfere because it's, you're a fly in the wall documentary and you're doing this, but at the same time, you're like, I kind of want to reach out to him and say, hey, you're killing yourself. But I can't. But so what I ended up doing was I didn't do that, but I know his doctor, for example. His doctor was so frustrated with him because of his wrestling and won't stop and just all of that pain medication and everything that he's on. And when we were in Thunder Bay, and after he had a really bad injury in the ring, we were in Thunder Bay, and he went to see the doctor, and I was allowed to go and film and interview him. And I was talking to him, and I said to him, I said, you know what, this is your chance. We're going to have the camera on him. He's not going to get away. Just put him on the spot. Put him in his place. Tell him. And he was like, I can do that 100%. And we had some great moments there where he was, he's swearing at him. He's telling him, you're going to be in a wheelchair. You might not even make, seeing your daughter going down the aisle for a wedding if you keep this up. And so he really laid into him. Those were some kind of, for me, those were those really, personal, strong moments that I really liked.
All right. So besides making this documentary, you also have on the resume managing director at Raven Banner Entertainment. Give us a synopsis of what that means.
Well, Raven Banner is a distribution company here in Canada, and when we formed it, we're going into our 10th year. We're a company that makes or produces and distributes genre films. So genre films are anything in the sort of the Comic-Con, Fan Expo type of world, from horror films to action movies, fantasy, sci-fi, comic book, all that sort of fan culture. That's what we love. We love horror films first and foremost, and we're doing what we love. So we're releasing films like Turbo Kid and The Autopsy of Jane Doe and cool things like that.
And Climax.
Yes.
Yeah, that was film? Great. Yeah, it was a pretty Gasparino, you're always gonna get something's going on with his movies for sure.
Yeah. I remember seeing that film when we were in Cannes at the Cannes Film Festival, and we looked for movies to buy, to bring to Canada, bring back and distribute and all that. And we saw that film and we're like, oh my God, this thing was just on a completely different level. So it was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. All right. So you've got this sort of a producer, distributor background. Tell me about the perspective directing a feature-length documentary has now given you for that job and just for everything else.
I think in life, we're always learning. I think it's important to always keep learning and keep growing. I mean, we're into the 10th year of our company, of what we're doing. I never imagined myself like thinking about directing a documentary and doing this, and it came to me by accident, in the sense that I used to live in Mexico years ago, and I knew had known Ian, and 18 years later I bumped into him at the airport, and he told me his story, and he's like, we're going back and forth. It's like, hey, maybe there's a movie here, and then one thing led to another, and it happened, and all of a sudden I was making this, and it was like, that was the challenge. It was like, wow, I got to go and actually do this now. And so juggling the company, the distribution, releasing movies, developing projects, and then I had to, almost like very similar to Ian, we had to follow him around. We had a very small crew. So on weekends we would fly to Mexico City or Los Angeles or Thunder Bay and film certain events, whether it was like a graduation for his daughter, or or a wrestling event, or something like that. And then of course doing the distribution side of it for the company was a lot to juggle, but it was a challenge, and for me it was really exciting because just try not to, just again, always trying to learn and grow for me is an important aspect.
Cool. So tell me about the he was doing the Lucha Underground stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about that show and what that's like, what the energy is like at those events.
Well, Lucha Underground is a show it was a show in Los Angeles created by by MGM and the El Rey Network. Actually, Mark Burnett from Survivor and all that was involved in Robert Rodriguez, who formed the El Rey Network. So they came together and they wanted to create this a different type of a wrestling show where it combined the elements of Mexican culture and lucha libre and almost like soap opera storytelling.
Mhm.
And they created this really neat show, and it was different than kind of WWE in the sense of WWE was like a weekly show. They created a whole season, scripted with little segments and in between. And so when you binge it and you watch it, there's a whole storyline, and then the end of the season 1, for example, there's a big twist, and Vampiro was brought into this to help sort of kind of orchestrate the whole sort of season, and it was really, really cool, really different. And it's completely different than, say, WWE. Unfortunately, I think they're in season 4. I think they finished at season 4. I don't know about season 5. It's going to get renewed or not.
Okay, cool. Yeah, El Rey is a very, very cool network. It's great that Robert Rodriguez is allowed to do something like that.
I mean, I wish we had it here in Canada.
Yeah, same. When it was announced, I was cheesed that I couldn't watch it. But,
oh man, they got like so many. They got monster movies and Bruce Lee movies and all kinds of wrestling, those lucha libre monster wrestling movies from like the 70s, and it's such a cool network.
They have great ads. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the feeling you want people to have after watching Nail in the Coffin?
I think that essentially, at the end of the day, for me, I think it's a story about family. It's a story about a father doing what he has to do to support his daughter. And I think that's what everybody kind of, connects with. And that was always kind of the main idea. It was like a father trying to support his daughter. And we all, I think at the end of the day, we all have our jobs, whatever it is, whatever walk of life we're in. But at the end of the day, we all have to come home, and we have our family for support, or our circle for support, or something like that. And I think during these times, having that support is more important than ever.
All right. Well, Michael, thank you very much for your time. Do you have any final words you'd like to share about Nail in the Coffin, the fall and rise of Vampiro?
I think that I think the cool thing is that being a Canadian, I think it's really cool story about this guy. I think Ian is just an amazing individual. This is a guy that could have been an NHL All-Star Hall of Fame goalie. He was drafted. He walked away from that. He started pursuing wrestling. Then he ended up in Los Angeles, where he was a bodyguard for Milli Vanilli, right? And I could make a whole documentary on just his story with Milli Vanilli. He was behind, like, he saw everything. He knew what was going on, all of that. It was just incredible. And then he worked his way down into Mexico. And then just as MTV was hitting, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, all that whole scene, he arrived there, and that MTV met Lucha Libre, and he became this icon. Like, the guy can't even walk a block in Mexico without being stopped. And then he comes back to Canada, and like nobody knows who he is. So I find that's really a fascinating sort of aspect, the idea of what's fame, the idea of fame and all that. And then all in between all that, he's just a dad, and he's just trying to make ends meet. And I think that, all of that is, kind of just makes for a really interesting, cool story. And I think that anybody from Canada would really, really, kind of dig that and find it really fascinating.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll keep our eyes peeled for that release date.
Awesome, thank you. October 6th, we're hitting all the platforms: Rogers, Bell, Telus, iTunes, and it's also on Super Channel on pay TV as well.
Okay. Well, thanks again.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Take care.